Jeeve is mis se trína na cin, bhhailm fáilte car rómh hiag an dara chlár de stem ar scoil, ó Éireann Bunscoile an PDST.
Eve is Ms. Mary McLoone. We hope you will leave this evening's webinar with some practical ideas and insights into the outdoor STEM learning opportunities within your school grounds.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Beryl Healy. We are really looking forward to exploring STEM in the open air with you over the next hour. We hope you all have a nice cuppa and a treat beside you and that you're able to relax and enjoy the content we have prepared for you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Mulligan. We thank you for taking the time to join us this evening as we approach the end of a very busy half term. We acknowledge that these are very challenging times for schools, and we hope that this online workshop will prove to be useful, thought-provoking, and practical for teachers. I will now hand you over to Marion, who will take us through the introduction.
Thank you, Dennis. We have a wonderful webinar in store for you this evening, and we'll take the following format. First, I will take you through our key messages and the context for same. Then Beryl will guide you through the first section, Observing Outdoors. After this, Trina will look at prediction and practice, followed by Outdoor Trails, where Dennis will explore opportunities for trails within the school grounds. We'll conclude today's webinar by examining some useful web links. We'd love your participation, and this can be done in a number of ways. Throughout the hour, we'll ask you to take part in numerous polls which will appear on your screen and help us to interact with each other. Please note that responses are submitted anonymously. If at any stage during the webinar you have a question, please type it in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Our colleagues Kathleen, Mairead and Michelle are on hand to help answer any of your STEM queries and will endeavour to get to as many questions as possible. At the end of the webinar, you'll be directed to an evaluation form. We have made this as short and manageable as possible and would greatly appreciate your feedback, as it will help to guide us for the upcoming webinars. A recording of this webinar will be available on our website tomorrow, and all web links mentioned will be on our website and on Schoolnet. We might take this opportunity to find out a little more about the teachers joining us this evening. You will see your first poll appear on screen. Thank you so much for submitting a response. It's great to see that we've all class levels represented here this evening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this evening's webinar. If you would like to tweet during or after this event, please tag us using our account on screen and the hashtag STEMOurSchool. Similarly, if you try out any of the activities suggested this evening, we would love if you could share them with us during the week. We'd like to remind you all that the key component of our work in PDST is individualised school support. Our team of advisors are on hand to support your school in the areas of science, maths, STEM and team teaching. In line with current guidelines, our support is temporarily restricted to phone and online support, and applications for school support can be made through our website at the address on screen. We'll now take a few moments to look at our key messages for this evening's webinar. STEM integration means planning for learning experiences which explore maths and science skills and content meaningfully. STEM learning experiences should be linked to real-world contexts. They should harness pupils' natural curiosity to solve problems in their immediate learning environments. And inquiry-based and playful pedagogies can support pupil learning in STEM in all contexts and settings. All of the learning experiences which we will explore this evening have been chosen with the key considerations in light of COVID-19 restrictions in mind. We have also included activities that can be easily adapted for blended learning and/or remote learning. When planning for teaching, learning and assessment in the outdoors, schools need to take into consideration their COVID response plan, COVID risk assessment, current public health advice, and any other relevant school policies and procedures. So looking at the rationale for outdoor learning, let's see what the curriculum says. As you know, the 1999 curriculum is based on a wide range of learning principles. 4 of these can be seen in green and have helped to influence our content today, as well as the quote at the bottom of your screen, that first-hand experience that actively engages the child with the immediate environment and with those who live in it is the most effective basis for learning. You will find reference to using the outdoors for learning across the curriculum. One of the most important aspects of the science curriculum and the wider SESE programme is the emphasis placed on the exploration of the local environment of the child and school. The use of maths trails is promoting the mathematics curriculum. Research also tells us that outdoor learning is beneficial for pupils in a number of ways. It helps children develop self-confidence and enhance both their physical and mental well-being. It nurtures creativity and problem-solving skills. It stimulates, inspires, and motivates pupils in their learning. Learning outdoors allows children to recognise their independence alongside an interdependence and connectedness with the world around them. Outdoor learning can reinforce and enrich what happens inside our classrooms. We now have a short video from Shane O'Neill of Frebel College, Maynooth University, talking about some of the benefits of outdoor learning.
Well, I think the outdoor learning has many benefits for children. It could be curricular based or it could be just from a general well-being base. I think children generally, if you ask a child to remember something from their childhood, it's generally something that happened outdoors. Children have very happy memories of outdoor events. So I suppose what we're trying to do here is maybe transfer some of that happiness about being in the outdoors into the school setting. But in the pandemic, everybody's anxious, like parents, children, teachers are anxious. And just to get out to the outdoors, it's a way of relieving some of that anxiety. Just to get out, get the fresh air, get a bit of movement going, and then go back into the classroom. It's a natural way also of ventilating the classrooms. I've seen some really good examples of this, where schools in city centre Dublin, maybe in a concrete type situation where there's very little soft surfaces, and they do an awful lot of the work outside. I think there's huge work that's gone on in schools around using their yard, painting the yard with various maths diagrams and patterns and so on. And I think it's really about looking at your environment and see how can you adapt that environment to the learning. Well, really, that's Owen. It's made that you're not gneud and curriculum a dhéanamh téir just piece of your brave Oliver Connie.
Many thanks to Shamie for sharing his enthusiasm for outdoor learning with us. Outdoor learning can also provide excellent opportunities to develop skills in context. True STEM lessons engage both skill and content. In this webinar, we will explore how skills can be developed through content. Although we'll be focusing on one particular skill in each section, namely observation, prediction, and recording and communicating, it's important to note that these skills are seldom met in isolation, but are component parts of an investigative approach to STEM. A critical part of our role as teacher is to support the pupils in developing their mathematical and science skills, as it is these skills that will allow them to engage confidently in new and challenging tasks in the future. As you view this webinar, you might be inspired to plan for a special day outdoors with your class on the 5th of November on Outdoor Classroom Day. This is a global movement to inspire and celebrate outdoor play and learning at home and at school. You can find more information at outdoorclassroomday.org.uk. I'll now hand you over to Beryl, who will take us through some outdoor STEM activities that focus on developing the skill of observation.
Thank you, Marianne. The STEM Education Policy Statement of 2017 to 2026 identified the development of skills as a key priority for primary pupils. In this section, the focus is on the skill of observation through STEM, just one of the many skills that scientists and mathematicians use every day. By developing the skill of observation, pupils will learn to use all of their senses, to notice the main characteristics and identify similarities and differences. Observation is also linked to the other skills in the maths and science curricula. For example, when pupils sort objects by properties, they must observe closely to find the similarities and differences. And the development of this skill lays the foundation for skills development across the whole curriculum. The activities Sit Spot, Zoom In, Zoom Out, and Fabulous Firsts will engage pupils in observing familiar objects outdoors, to see the world more mathematically and scientifically, and to stimulate their curiosity. This poplet illustrates how the skill of observation can be developed through the content and other skills of the maths and science curricula and integrated with other curricular areas. I will now give you a moment to have a look at this. Although the pupils play outside every day, are they too busy running around to notice what is actually going on around them? Outdoor learning provides an opportunity for them to use their senses to explore the yard in a different way. In SitSpot, we're concentrating on observation while also using the other STEM skills. And these activities link with the strand units of Myself in Science and Spatial Awareness in Maths. The sights, sounds, and smells outside constantly change from hour to hour, day to day, or season to season. A sit spot is a place outside where the pupils slow down and sit still to focus on their surroundings. Over the course of the day or year, they return to their same sit spot and record what has stayed the same and what has changed, without any need for specialized equipment. When pupils first sit down, ask them to take 3 deep breaths to relax. And they can then use their senses to observe and wonder. Can you see anything you haven't noticed before? Is the ground warm or cold? How does sitting in your spot make you feel? Although all classes can do this, infant classes could be asked to focus on one object, such as a wall. Have they noticed that patch of moss? Is the wall in the shade in the morning and in the afternoon? This activity could be used by very high-risk pupils to develop the same skills as their peers, despite their physical distance. After observing, encourage the pupils to reflect on their experience by discussing the changes they observed and anything which surprised them. You can then assess their skills development and plan for future learning experiences. A key part of observation is noticing changes over time, and pupils will need somewhere to record their observations for comparison later that day and during the year. So one suggestion which has worked well in some schools is an outdoor journal, which could be online in digital form, or it can be a notebook which is carried outside. Some possible outdoor journal prompts are available as Berla agus Gaeilge, and we'll highlight their location at the end of the webinar. A sit spot could also be used to focus on just one sense, such as hearing, by asking the pupils to just listen. Is there a bird singing above them? Is that a car beeping behind them? Perhaps you have a multi-grade class and you might ask the older pupils to use compass directions to identify the sounds they hear to the north and to the south. This activity can help develop spatial awareness by enabling pupils to use positional and directional language in context. The pupils can then create a sound map to record the directions the sounds came from, and afterwards they can identify what they heard, if the sound was near or far away, and if they liked or disliked the sound, a valuable assessment opportunity. More information about spatial relationship vocabulary can be found on page 24 of the PDST Shape and Space Manual, which is free to download from pdst.ie/manuals. Do you remember the song Head, Shoulders, Knees and Toes? This song can be used to help examine the playground at different heights. So pupils can observe what's above their heads, at shoulder height, below their knees, or on the ground beside their toes. They can then practice drawing the objects from the different angles, perhaps noticing something new and unusual. This is also a great opportunity to develop language skills, as they could create a list of nouns and adjectives about their observations, and then write a poem in their outdoor journal. This activity would work well in a blended learning context as well. This 4th class pupil was asked to write the poem for homework, and then she created a short video using Adobe Spark in school.
Above My Head by Melissa. High above my head, what do I see? Fluffy clouds floating over me. High above my head, what do I see? Tiny birds flying over me. High above my head, what do I see? Strong tree branches swaying over me. High above my head, what do I see? Shiny windows reflecting on me. I never would have guessed there was so much high above my head.
This video demonstrated Melissa's use of positional language as she wrote her poem from the perspective of standing on the ground. Up until now, we focused on the wider world of the playground, but in zoom in, zoom out, the pupils will observe the finer details while also using their other STEM skills. These activities will link with properties and characteristics of materials in science and lines and angles and symmetry in maths. Outside, pupils can be surrounded by many stimuli, and it can be hard for them to concentrate on the lichen on the wall when the bird is singing on the roof. A simple tool such as a looking tube can help to minimize distractions. It's easy to source. They just need to bring in the cardboard tube from a roll of kitchen towel, or they can make one from a rolled up piece of paper. Everybody can have their own one, so it minimizes the need to share equipment, and they're easily replaced if they get lost. This tube helps pupils to focus on a small space, zooming in to see the finer details and zooming out to see the object as a whole. We're now going to use the looking tube to examine this rock. So standing up, looking down, we observe it blends in well with the concrete. As we focus in on the whole rock with the tube, we start to see the lines scored across the bottom, and there's a variety of colors across the top. As we zoom in even closer with our looking tube, the surface seems to be pitted with holes and there's quite a rough texture. We can see a spiral near the bottom, so we pick it up and investigate by touch to discover it's the remains of a mini beast. This same method can be used to look closely at walls or windows or tarmac. Pupils tend to like using the looking tube as it makes them feel like they are explorers with telescopes. Before cameras, explorers relied on detailed observational drawings to bring home a record of their amazing discoveries. Imagine trying to explain what an elephant was if you didn't have this record with you. Observational drawings can teach pupils transferable skills, which they will use across the whole curriculum. Recording their looking tube observations presents an opportunity to practice and develop the skill outdoors. Encourage the pupils to look at the shape and the size of the object. Older pupils could use rulers to measure its dimensions, while younger ones use non-standard units. They should also focus on the texture, colors, lines, and angles they see. In a multi-grade class, younger pupils could just draw, while the older pupils add more details by using labels. Observational drawing is about recording their observations, and it's not about creating a beautiful piece of art. Feedback is important to improve their work, as you can see in this senior infant's work. In his first draft, the top of the leaf was too rounded. However, after he had a conference with his teacher, he changed the shape to reflect what he was observing, and he then focused on the colours. Perhaps the next lesson would focus on accurately drawing the direction of the veins. We're now going to watch a short video clip of pupils in English National School, which is a 3-teacher school in Galway, who are creating observational drawings outdoors. This clip was recorded pre-COVID, and if you're completing this activity, you will need to take into account your school's COVID response plan.
Okay, this is an ivy, isn't it? And this is a really kind of a light green.
That one.
That's from the hawthorn tree, isn't it?
Yeah.
Children should be provided with opportunities to make observational drawings of different plants and animals. This work requires focused observation and concentrated looking. As children draw, they should observe many features of the plants that they may have previously overlooked.
Although the pupils drew plants in this clip, they could also draw walls or windows or tarmac. Is féidir leis na daltaí pas a lína isteach don rud a bhí ó tharraingt acu? Is féidir leis an múinteoir an obair sin a bheas? Féidir go gá níos mór folklór a bhúna? Our local environment is constantly changing during the year, but can we remember when those changes happened? In Fabulous Firsts, we will look at ways for pupils to record these seasonal changes while focusing on their effects on living things and focusing on time and maths. Now, we're going to have a quick poll now because we've had hail since we've come back to school. And I wonder if you can remember roughly when it first fell. So I'd like you to complete this poll, which is going to be on screen now, and I'll give you a moment to do so. There was hail in the Burren on September 23rd, and Dublin had hail a day later on September 24th. And I think the results of this poll show how hard it is to remember when we observe observational changes. And it demonstrates just one reason why we should develop this skill with our pupils. So observing outdoors is the perfect opportunity to discuss the changes that we notice at different times of the day and during different seasons to help develop the concept of the passing of time. Class calendars, which is an activity from the Measures Manual, can be used to highlight the important days during the year, such as birthdays and holidays. But these class calendars can also be used to create a calendar of seasonal firsts. The firsts could be observations from the wider environment, such as the first time they saw swallows migrating south, or the smaller details like when a wasp first came into the classroom. These and other seasonal observations could be recorded in their outdoor journals or on a class calendar of firsts for the wall, so they could compare changes from year to year. Because perhaps the swallows migrated south earlier in 2021 than in 2020, and the pupils could then research to try and find a reason why. But they can also record changes that have a personal impact. When was the first time they had to zip up their coat to go outside? And when was it first warm enough to leave their hats and gloves inside? Very high-risk pupils could also do this at home. This activity could work well with digital technology because perhaps your class has a class blog, and here they can create a digital calendar using photos and text to describe their fabulous firsts. I wonder what will be your class's first fabulous first. I'm now going to hand you over to Trina, who will focus on prediction in practice.
Míle buíochas, Beryl. In this section, we're going to explore activities that develop the skill of prediction: bowling bottles, pouring puddles, and throwing tea bags. We have taken care to ensure that these activities are safe under current guidelines, that they require few resources and are accessible to all primary school pupils. These activities can also be done in any outdoor setting. The pupils sitting in front of us are growing up in an ever-changing world. Technology, climate change, and not least COVID-19 are reshaping our society, forcing us all to adapt to unexpected changes in our lives. That is why it is critical now more than ever that pupils are given opportunities to develop and enhance the skills as outlined in the primary school curriculum. These skills are a toolkit. They are transferable and may be applied across contexts. They are not something extra that we have to teach, nor are they developed in isolation. Actually, it is through the content of the curriculum and our choice of tasks that we develop and enhance pupil skills. The activities that we have chosen for this section will highlight how skills, in particular the skill of prediction, can be developed in tandem with content areas of the maths, science, and wider curriculum. These tasks are suitable for all classes, including those in multigrade. Pupils often equate a prediction with a guess. However, predictions should be based on evidence. This evidence can stem from prior knowledge, previous experiences, and observations. Watch this short video now and think about the information you are using to inform your prediction. This video is based on the Bounciest Ball activity from STEM Sawalia and the webinar on games. The activity is suitable for all classes, infants to 6th. We will include the link in the resources section. In junior classes, predictions will be prompted by the teacher and will arise in structured situations. In the middle and senior classes, predictions will emanate from the pupils themselves. Pupils' predictions can be useful for assessment purposes. They provide insight into pupils' thinking by illustrating current understanding of a concept or highlighting any misconceptions that pupils might hold. The teacher guidelines of the 1999 science curriculum recommend that pupils' predictions be linked to the testing of ideas in investigations. We will do this in a couple of minutes in the bowling bottles, pouring puddles, and throwing tea bags activities. But first, we're going to look at how these activities develop skills and content in tandem and allow for meaningful integration across the curriculum. Although prediction is a skill on both the science and geography curricula, it can also be developed through the content of maths and languages, as illustrated by the poplet on your screen. Take a moment now to consider this. As well as developing the skill of predicting, our first activity also targets estimating and measuring, reasoning and communicating and expressing. It focuses on developing pupils' conceptual understanding in measures and forces and allows for integration with data and PE. And it uses easy to resource materials. The task simply requires pupils to roll bottles of water to cross a target line. Before they begin rolling the bottles, pupils predict how far they think the bottle will travel. They discuss their prediction and their reasoning with the other pupils in their pod or group. They can use their outdoor journal to record these predictions. For younger pupils or pupils needing more support, the teacher could facilitate the discussion on predictions. After each bowl, pupils could discuss the force they have used to move the bottle and measure the distances traveled. In junior classes, non-standard units can be used, for example, steps or handspans. More formal units will be used with pupils whose conceptual understanding of length is more developed. These measurements could also be recorded in their outdoor journal. They can then move on to predict what would happen if the bottle was empty. Will it travel further? Will they need more or less force to roll the bottle? Again, it is important that pupils share the thinking behind their predictions and record them in their journal. To extend the measuring element of this task, pupils could be given broken rulers to measure with. As the image on screen suggests, a broken ruler can be a ruler that doesn't start at 0. Pupils will be required to calculate the length using the beginning and end points. Or the ruler is too short so that pupils have to move it in order to measure the distance. Bottles of different capacities, the use of slopes, or pupils' own testable questions could also provide opportunities for further inquiries. Testable questions are questions that can be answered by designing and conducting an investigation. They're about changing one thing to see what effect this has on something else. For example, our 3rd class pupil in his question wonders how adding stones to the bottle might affect the distance traveled. Pupils could investigate their chosen testable question at home or as part of a blended learning project. They could share and discuss their results on their return to school. Our bowling bottles activity has been adapted from the Science for One resources from the Primary Science Teaching Trust. They have created a collection of activities that can be completed by pupils working on their own or in small groups. These activities would also be suitable for pupils who are at very high risk due to COVID-19 and are unable to return to school. As the title of the resource collection suggests, these are primarily science tasks. However, as the bowling bottles activity illustrated, They can easily be extended to integrate with maths and other curricular areas. Don't recycle your plastic bottles just yet, as we need them for our next activity, pouring puddles. Similar to the previous activity, pouring puddles develops the skill of predicting, reasoning, estimating and measuring, and communicating and expressing through the content of the measures and materials strands of the curriculum, and it allows for integration with art and history. This activity has been taken from page 193 of our measures manual. Tá leagan gaeilge de lábhlabhar seo ar fáil freisin. Is féidir an dá leagan íslódáil siar in aisce ó pdst.ie/manuals. For this activity, a flat, dry space on the playground will be needed, as well as the resources on screen. This challenge requires pupils to predict the size of the puddle that they think will be made when they pour the water from their bottle onto the ground. They will record their predictions using chalk. After they have poured their puddles, pupils can measure the perimeter or the area of these puddles. In the video clip that follows, we can see how this activity was undertaken by 5th class in Scoilraftery in County Mayo. This challenge could be extended by getting pupils to investigate what would happen if other materials were added to the water, mud or clay, for example. What do they predict will happen now? Will their puddle get bigger or smaller? Will the ratio of the mud to water make a difference? Why do they think this? Sometimes as adults, we can shy away from messy play or investigations involving dirt or mud. However, the research is clear on the advantages of this kind of sensory play for all pupils, as well as building creativity, reducing childhood anxiety and stress, which is important now more than ever. Research from the University of Bristol in England suggests that our exposure to the harmless bacteria in mud not only boosts our immune system, but also alters our vulnerability to conditions such as depression. An easy mud activity is using it for painting or printing. If mud is not readily available, the clay for art could be used instead. Pupils who had already engaged in the pouring puddles activity could use their mud mixtures. Other pupils for whom this activity was not developmentally appropriate could engage in mud investigations now. They could mix different quantities of mud and water and predict how this will affect the texture or the color of their paint. Pupils could also explore changing the color of the mud by adding things, leaves or berries, for example. Paul O'Donnell, another outdoor enthusiast, has a great activity on muck painting in his book While Teaching, where he highlights the opportunities for integration with history and the visual arts. A link for sourcing Paul's book will be included in the resource section at the end. A further extension to this task might involve pupils looking and responding to the art of famous mud painters. Our final activity in this section, throwing tea bags, similar to the previous activities, develops the skill of predicting, observing, estimating and measuring, and communicating and expressing. Pupils are able to improve these skills through the content of the measures and material strands of the curriculum, and it allows for integration with data and PE. Like the previous activities, few resources are needed. Begin the activity by getting pupils to observe their tea bags. As Beryl told us earlier, observation involves using all our senses, though for this activity we might hold off on tasting the tea bags. Pupils could record their observations in their outdoor journal. Next, get pupils to predict how far they will be able to throw their tea bag. They should share their predictions and explain their reasoning in their pods or groups. Middle and senior classes might also like to decide how they are going to throw the tea bag, bringing in elements from the PE curriculum. Will they use the overarm or underarm throw? Will they use their dominant or weaker hand? Which one do they think will result in the furthest throw? When they have thrown their tea bags, they measure the distance of their throw and compare the results with their predictions. The activity could be extended by wetting the tea bags. Pupils can now predict the effect that the change in weight will have on their throw. Will they be able to throw it further? Why do they think this? After they have thrown their tea bags, pupils measure the distances achieved and compare and discuss their results. This activity has generated lots of data for pupils to record. The method of recording will depend on their age and level of understanding. Infants and younger pupils could work with the teacher to collate and record their data, like the example on the screen. Older pupils can make decisions on how and what they want to graph. Do they want to graph how far the dry or wet tea bag travelled and compare it to their predictions? Or maybe they could compare the distances travelled by the overhand versus the underhand throw. Once the graphs have been created, pupils should spend time discussing and interpreting the results. After all this talk of tea bags, many of you will be thinking about a nice cup of tea, but I believe we had a number of questions coming in on the Q&A, so we might head over to Marion before our final section.
Thank you, Trina. Yes, we've had lots of questions coming this evening and our colleagues have been very busy trying to respond to them all. So thank you to everybody who submitted a question this evening. Michelle tells me we've had one question that's been asked a few times in a few different ways. We might answer that one now. So one of our participants, Mary, says, I believe there's no such thing as bad weather with just the wrong clothes. And that according to Mary, that sorts out the children and staff with regard to our inclement weather. But wonders, do we have any suggestions for protection resources that you bring outdoors for outdoor learning and protecting from the weather? I might direct that question to you, Beryl.
Thanks, Marion. Hi, Mary. That's a brilliant question. We'd suggest maybe keeping the amount of resources that you bring out to a minimum. And perhaps the pupils could put contact or plastic cover on the outdoor journal to protect it from the weather. Then if you're bringing tablets or other items out with you, some sort of waterproof container like a biscuit tin or a plastic bin would be useful to store those items. And you could also have one per pod as well. And I hope that answers your question.
Great, thanks, Beryl. Nice, simple, practical and inexpensive suggestions there. Hope that's given you a few ideas, Mary, about how to manage your resources when you go outdoors. We'll now continue on with the next section of our webinar, where Dennis will explore outdoor trails within the school grounds.
Thank you, Marion, for that. Our final section will explore STEM trails. A STEM trail is an activity-based task that can take place within the school building, the playground, or locality where pupils can experience mathematics and science in the real world. Today, we are focusing on the school grounds. There are three parts to this section of the online workshop. Our first section will examine how you as class teacher can prepare for the trail and how the pre-trail exploration in class can ignite curiosity and interest for pupils. In the second section, we will look at some sample stop-spot activities that you might include as part of your trail. Our final section will look at the contextual learning opportunities that arise from a STEAM trail and how we can extend the learning on the return to class by focusing on recording and communicating. I would like to highlight some sample trails that we have created that will be made available to you after tonight's online workshop. My colleagues on the primary STEM team have created 4 suggested trails. Agus ar dóigh, tá leagan Gaeilge an Fásta. These can be easily adapted to suit the multi-grade situation. We also have a suggested trail based on the kitchen that may suit in a blended learning context or for high-risk pupils due to COVID-19. It is important that well-designed questions should spark curiosity and wonder for the pupil, lead to mathematical conjectures and scientific hypotheses as they navigate this inquiry. The aim and purpose of the trio should be explained to the pupils, and that there will be follow-up tasks when the outdoor trail has ended. Encourage pupils to adopt a range of approaches to recording their observations. Pupils should also be facilitated with opportunities to sketch and draw annotated representations of their observations. Engaging in trails at multiple times over the course of the year also enables pupils to observe seasonal changes in their school playground. A trail is made up of interest points known as stop spots while on a sequenced, pre-planned route. The pupils will be asked to observe, explore, and engage in problem solving in STEM areas at each stop spot. Think about how each pod or group could begin at the different stop spots so that you are making the best use of your available space. Any equipment or resources used in the activities should comply with the school policy for COVID-19 and the school health and safety policy. Each teacher can design their own STEM trail. However, it may be more time efficient if teachers work collaboratively. Explore your outdoor space using all your senses. A map of your school might be useful at this point, such as an architectural drawing shown here on screen from a recent refurbishment. If not available, a hand-drawn map, as shown here, is just as good. When you have examined and identified the area available to you, your next step is to choose your stop spots for your trail. When considering your stops, these are some of the questions on screen that you might utilize. What materials are present? Are there opportunities to explore shadow or light? What about skills development? Are there shape and space and measuring opportunities? Can the pupils engage in sketching and drawing? Have we considered oral language development? Identify points of interest or stop spots that pupils can explore. For example, on screen you will see a window, a man who will cover, a door, a railing, or an outdoor wall. Now decide what STEM task could be assigned at the stop spot. Each teacher can devise an activity suitable for their class level to be completed at each stop spot. On the screen, you will see a picture of a window. There are many activities which the pupils could engage in at this stop spot. Infants could measure the length using standard units such as handspan or use cubes. As pupils' understanding of length develops, they could move to standard units such as centimeters and meters by using a ruler, tape, or meter stick. The broken ruler, as explained by Trina in the previous section, could be used to increase the level of challenge. Will they look for patterns, shapes, shadows, materials, or living things? What could the pupils measure, count, or graph? Before embarking on the STEM trail, the teacher can ignite pupil curiosity in a number of ways. Teachers can do a sensory check-in with the children, asking them to look out the window and engage their senses. What can you see? What can you hear? Pupils can be challenged to create a map of the area or a route, perhaps a bird's eye view. Pupils could be challenged to estimate the distance between the classroom and the first stop spot and how long they think it will take. Mystery images can depict close-ups of items, objects, or locations on the school grounds. The teacher can prepare and encourage pupils to use their observing eyes and record where they think the images are. The pupils can later share their thoughts on the locations of the mystery images and communicate their ideas. This is a simple example of an estimation activity which can help to ignite the pupils' interest and curiosity before leaving the classroom. These are available on our STEM trails, which are available on SkullNet.
Here, QR codes are being used in the outdoor classroom. A QR code is very similar to a barcode. QR codes can contain text, links to websites, videos, files, and much more. In this lesson, the teacher has used QR codes to set tasks for the children to work on independently, and they can also access additional relevant information which they can further research back in the classroom.
It's great to see the pupils at English there making use of digital technology in their outdoor environment. Incorporating digital technology into the learning experience can be very beneficial and engaging for pupils. Having pupils work and learn together in small pods or teams and undertake inquiry-based learning outside the classroom replicates real-world settings. In this section, we will highlight 3 sample activities that could be included on your trail. Pupils of all ages can be tasked to identify a scene on the trail that they think is interesting or appealing and photograph it or draw it. Pupils could be asked to write a set of clues to lead to their mystery area. Pupils can look at the images using their STEM eyes and pose questions based on what they see. As an extension to this activity, pupils might enjoy using a viewfinder from a stop spot and discussing what they can see using their STEM eyes. They can respond orally in pairs or pods, or they can write a few lines to record what they see. These work samples could be shared using a digital portfolio or would be a nice display on the school corridor. Teachers can scaffold this activity in class by posing STEM questions that might stimulate curiosity. We have highlighted 2 sound walk activities, which were featured in STEM Smaointe earlier in the year. The first, pictorial sound walk, challenges pupils to recognise and identify a variety of sounds in their environment. The sound walk on the right invites pupils to record the sounds they hear by drawing pictures of the source of the sound and then classifying the sounds as loud or soft. Outdoor numbers asks pupils to represent a number using any natural materials that they can find on the trail. Younger classes can be given a certain number to represent, while the older classes might enjoy choosing their own number to create. Open-ended questioning could be used to allow the pupils to share everything they know about the particular number. An extension activity might involve pupils exploring place value by creating an outdoor number line. Allowing pupils to choose the starting number might provide a great opportunity for rich discussion, challenging pupil misconceptions around place value. Remember, the number line doesn't always have to start at 0, and it doesn't always have to be horizontal. After the trail, the pupils will need to display and share their learning. This is more than show and tell. The teacher can make use of the data collected as a launching point for classroom discussion. Skillfully facilitated discussion must lead the pupils to make connections between their previous learning, their current learning, and how this links to their understanding of STEM in the wider world context. Reflection on the learning and building pupils' thinking is important to extend the learning from the stop spot. As the pupils explain their thinking, the teacher could help the pupil to make connections between different pupils' responses as they reflect on their learning. This rich talk will help the pupils make sense of the learning experience. The discussion is necessary to support the pupils' responses. This talk and reflection comes first and can then be recorded in their outdoor journal as outlined by Beryl in section 1. The stop spot activities outlined earlier on in the trail could be developed further. For example, pupils may create a task or an activity using mystery images. The sound walk may have resulted in the collection of a large amount of data. Pupils may be asked to devise a way to bring this data together so that it could be efficiently displayed and analysed. Could they make graphs or charts of this data, or perhaps use digital technology to help to present their findings? This would help develop the skill of recording and communicating. The trail may also have inspired further pupil questions and wonderings. Some questions could be used as a basis for subsequent class inquiries or investigations, while other questions could be recorded and displayed on a classroom or whole school outdoor learning or wonder wall display board. So, it's now over to you to bring STEM alive in your school by adapting or creating maps of the school playground, by making use of mystery images from the familiar setting, and by involving the pupils in devising their own stop spot challenges for peers or other classes. And remember, the learning continues even though the trail has ended. These trails can be structured to include tasks suitable for all levels of ability. This integrated approach to outdoor learning can stimulate all abilities and can challenge the more able pupils. This is a socially active learning activity and offers teachers an opportunity to revise and integrate many aspects of the strands. I hope you now feel confident in making the most of this fun and adventure-filled learning experience for the pupils in your classroom. I will hand you back now to Marion for our plenary and final comments.
Míle buíochas, Dennis. Before we conclude our webinar this evening, I will give you a moment to look at our key messages again. For any of you who would like to access the online supports from our team, please look at the PDST website and click on the STEM tab at the top of the page. Our colleagues at SkullNet have also a dedicated page for the STEM or Skull webinar series, where you'll find all of the resources mentioned in tonight's webinar. For further outdoor learning ideas, you may also like to take a look at our webinar, STEM in the Garden, from our STEM Sawalia series, also available on our website. Furthermore, the most recent edition of STEM Swincha contains a section on outdoor learning that complements this webinar. STEM Swincha is an e-bulletin created by our team to support teaching, learning and assessment in mathematics, science and STEM at all class levels. If you have a mobile device to hand, you may like to use this QR code now to bring you directly to the page on our website with all of the resources and web links mentioned in our webinar this evening. Alternatively, you can use the link pdst.ie/STEM-webinars. Remember, Outdoor Classroom Day is on Thursday, the 5th of November, and we'd be delighted to hear about any of the activities that you do with your class on that day. You can tag us on Twitter at PDST Primary STEM. Finally, we'd like to remind you that registration is now open for the next webinar in our series, STEM in Our World. It will take place on Tuesday, 10th of November. We will be exploring innovation and ingenuity in the world around us and considering the relevance in the daily lives of our pupils. If you're interested in exploring thematic, cross-curricular ideas for classroom learning experiences inspired by examples of STEM in our world, then you won't want to miss this one. Registration is now open on the PDST website. And that brings us to the end of our second live webinar from the PDST Primary STEM series, STEM or Skull.
We hope you've enjoyed the webinar as much as we have and that you're now inspired and excited to go out and explore the potential of outdoor learning in your school grounds.
Míle buíochas de chulúine ar an bhur an STEM don obair a rinne siad ar an gceardal anseo. go háirithe, Kathleen, Mairead and Michelle a bhí carú linn anocht.
We want to thank you all for joining us this evening and wish you all well with your STEM adventures in the outdoors.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Slán go fóill. Slán.
Slán.
Slán.